They said he was stealing the car. The shout ripped through the polished quiet of the Innovation Expo parking lot. Laughter and polite conversation fell away as 3 security guards sprinted across the asphalt, their radios crackling. In seconds, they surrounded a man standing beside a sleek silver prototype, the most advanced machine at the event. The man's name was Ethan Miles. His hand froze on the small black key fob that pulsed with a blue glow. He could feel his pulse matching that rhythm. His mouth went dry as he heard the clatter of metal, handcuffs being pulled free. "On your knees," the lead guard barked. "Right now." Ethan blinked in disbelief. "There's a mistake," he said, steady but firm. "This is my car. I designed it. I built it." For a moment's silence. Then came laughter. Cruel, dismissive laughter that sliced through the air. "Sure you did," one of them sneered. "And I'm the President of the United States." Phones came out. Cameras started recording. The hum of judgment spread like wildfire through the growing crowd of executives and engineers. Ethan's stomach twisted. Every eye burned into him, seeing not a creator, not an innovator, but a suspect. He had spent years preparing for this convention, dreaming that this day would mark the moment his invention would change the world. Now all that stared back at him were men ready to drag him away in cuffs. "Sir?" He tried again, voice calm but shaking inside. "My credentials are in my jacket. My name is Ethan Miles, founder of Miles Dynamics. I received confirmation to attend this event." The oldest guard snorted. "Yeah, right. You think anyone's dumb enough to let you near a car like this?" Before Ethan could reply, a new voice cut through the tension. "What's going on here?" The crowd parted for Richard Hale, the executive director of the expo. Tall, tan, his designer suit gleamed under the sunlight. He spoke with the easy arrogance of a man used to being obeyed. One guard gestured toward Ethan. "Caught this guy trying to break into the prototype vehicle. Claims he made it." Richard studied Ethan for a moment, his lips curving into a knowing smirk. "You built this?" He gestured at the futuristic vehicle beside him. "Yes," Ethan said, holding his gaze. Richard chuckled, soft but sharp enough to wound. "I know every engineer, every CEO worth knowing. You're not one of them." Ethan's heart pounded harder. "I submitted my application 3 months ago. Got a confirmation email. My credentials are right here." Richard waved his hand dismissively. "Anyone can print business cards." He looked at the car, circling it like a predator assessing prey. "This design uses advanced polymer energy systems. That's theoretical tech, something no hobbyist could ever make." "It's not theoretical," Ethan corrected quietly. "It's a polymer-based conductivity matrix. And it's real." For the first time, Richard's eyes flickered, just a hint of doubt. Then pride hardened his features again. "Take him to security. We'll handle this privately." As the guard stepped forward, something small slipped from Ethan's pocket. It hit the pavement with a faint metallic ring, a silver device covered in intricate etchings that pulsed faint blue. Richard stooped and picked it up. "What's this?" he asked, turning it in his hand. "Some kind of hacking tool?" Ethan met his gaze. "That," he said steadily, his voice cutting through the whispers, "is the key to understanding everything you think you know about energy storage." He paused, letting the words settle. "And you're holding it upside down?" The murmurs swelled. Cameras zoomed in, but Ethan's expression didn't waver. Inside, though, his world felt like it was cracking, because as the guards led him away, the people who'd come to witness innovation weren't seeing a pioneer. They were watching a man be erased by prejudice, one assumption at a time, and for the first time that day, Ethan Miles realized this wasn't just about his car. It was about proving that his existence in this space mattered at all. 3 weeks earlier, before the chaos and the humiliation, Ethan had been in a far different world. The air in his workshop smelled of solder and late nights. Rows of circuit boards and half-assembled modules cluttered the wooden tables. Sunlight crept through dusty windows, streaking across the organized chaos of invention. He hadn't slept for 2 days, maybe 3. The final prototype of his control module sat in front of him, a small, unassuming piece of tech that could redefine everything about how energy was stored and transferred. 72 versions had failed. This was version 73. If this one fails, he muttered to himself, that's it. His voice echoed in the empty warehouse. The workshop wasn't just where he worked, it was his lifeline. His last chance before foreclosure. The rent was overdue. The electricity bill overdue. His grandmother's hospital treatments overdue. Every late notice on his desk felt like a ticking bomb. He wiped sweat from his forehead, adjusted the microcircuit, and whispered a quiet prayer. Then he activated the module. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the test panel blinked green, all parameters stable. He had done it. Ethan sank back into his chair, exhaling for the first time in days. His invention worked. The energy matrix held steady, storing power at triple the density of any existing battery. He reached for his phone with trembling fingers, ready to tell the one person who never stopped believing in him. His grandmother answered on the second ring. "Ethan," she said, her voice soft but strong. "You sound tired." "Just tired of failing," he said with a smile she could hear. "But I didn't this time, Grandma. I think I finally cracked it." "I knew you would," she said. "You've always been stubborn. Just like your grandfather." Ethan looked at the old photo taped beside his desk. His grandparents stood proudly outside a small auto shop in 1970s Chicago. His grandfather's hands grease-stained. His grandmother radiant beside him. They had built their business from nothing until a corporate project took the land and erased their legacy. "How's your treatment going?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "Same as before. The doctors say I need the next round soon, but we'll figure it out." Ethan's throat tightened. "I'm going to make sure you get it. The investors at the expo will see what I've built. They'll have to. Just remember," she said softly, "dignity isn't given. It's what no one can take away." After the call, he sat in silence, staring at the device in his hands. It glowed faintly blue in the half-light, proof that his dream was real, proof that he wasn't crazy to believe. Outside, dawn painted the skyline in streaks of orange. Ethan leaned forward, eyes reflecting the glow of his creation. "This is just the beginning," he whispered, and he had no idea how right he was. 2 weeks before the expo, Ethan sat at his workbench staring at the email that had become a cruel joke. "Your application is under review." He'd received the same message 3 times in as many months. No booth number, no credentials, no official response. Just the same polite rejection disguised as delay. He refreshed the page again, even though he knew it wouldn't change. Bills surrounded him like a quiet army. The overdue notice for his workshop rent. The hospital invoice marked in red. The utilities reminder folded beneath a blueprint stained with coffee. He rubbed his temples. He could hear his grandmother's words again. "Dignity isn't what others give you. It's what no one can take away." "Maybe not," he murmured, "but they sure try." He stood pacing between shelves stacked with prototype parts. Each one carried a piece of his dream, pieces that, if combined, could change the entire landscape of energy storage. His system wasn't just efficient, it was revolutionary. Polymer conductivity that could triple efficiency, charge in minutes, and eliminate the need for rare elements. And yet, no one would listen. He had pitched to 14 venture firms. Every meeting ended with the same polite rejection. "We're looking for founders with institutional backing. Have you considered joining an established company?" He knew what they really meant. They meant they didn't trust someone like him to lead a breakthrough, but Ethan Miles was not built to wait for permission. He opened a storage case and lifted the tarp off his creation, the vehicle that held his life's work. It gleamed under the fluorescent lights, sleek and silent, alive in its own way. He traced a hand over the surface, whispering to it like an old friend. "If they won't give me a booth, I'll make one myself." He looked at the map of the expo venue. The VIP parking section sat right outside the main investor entrance, perfectly visible, impossible to ignore. He would park there. Let the car speak for itself. Let truth be louder than exclusion. The plan was risky, but risk was all he had left. 3 days later, Ethan drove from Oakland to San Francisco in a borrowed pickup carrying his prototype. The city shimmered in the morning light, its skyline a monument to progress that rarely included people like him. The convention center loomed. Ahead, a fortress of glass and metal filled with the world's most powerful innovators. At the entrance, a staff member in a sharp blazer stopped him. "Exhibitor badge, please." I'm not exhibiting, Ethan said calmly. Just attending. The woman frowned. You'll need to stay in general access areas then. Her tone made it sound like a warning. I understand. She hesitated, glancing at the badge clipped to his chest. Miles Dynamics? I don't see that on the exhibitor list. We're new, he said, offering a patient smile. Of course. She didn't smile back. Enjoy the event. As he walked inside, the air felt too cold, too polished. The halls buzzed with conversation, laughter, and the smell of money. Booths sparkled with corporate logos, each one promising a future they'd already decided belonged to them. Within minutes, Ethan was mistaken for staff. Twice. Excuse me, can you direct me to the restroom? A woman in heels asked without looking at him. I don't work here, he said. Oh, she said, finally noticing his badge. Sorry. The word didn't mean much. He shook it off and kept walking. He passed the booth for Hale Energetics, Richard Hale's company, the very man who would later humiliate him in public. Hale stood at the center of a crowd, gesturing to a rotating display of his company's latest revolutionary battery technology. Our new system improves energy density by 15%, Hale announced proudly. That's what progress looks like. Realistic, verified, responsible. Ethan stopped at the edge of the group, watching the man perform. He knew those specs. He knew every weakness in Hale's design. His own system outperformed it threefold, yet he wasn't the one with the microphone. He was invisible here, but not for long. By noon, every potential investor who had agreed to meet him had suddenly canceled. Each message said the same thing. Scheduling conflict. He checked his account balance again. Less than 1 month of funds left. 27 days until foreclosure. His phone buzzed. A message from his grandmother's nurse. Doctor wants to discuss new treatment. Insurance denied again. Need decision by Friday. He closed his eyes. Friday. He looked around the expo hall at the banners, the polished shoes, the perfect smiles. Then he whispered to himself, time for Plan B. Outside, the sun had risen high and merciless. Ethan pulled the cover off his prototype, revealing it to the world. Its design turned heads instantly. The car's frame shimmered with iridescent contours, the soft hum of its energy system drawing curious onlookers. He started explaining, his voice steady, his words deliberate. This system doesn't rely on lithium or rare earths. It's a polymer-based conductivity matrix. It charges in under 3 minutes. A small crowd gathered. Interest flickered. For a moment, hope returned. Then Richard Hale appeared, flanked by security. His face was red, his voice sharp. What do you think you're doing? Demonstrating, Ethan said. This is public parking. You're soliciting my attendees, Hale snapped. You were denied a booth for a reason. Security, remove him. Ethan held up his phone. My confirmation email, I applied properly. Hale barely glanced at it. Application doesn't mean approval. You lack institutional credibility. Ethan gestured to the car. The proof is right here. Test it. That won't be necessary, Hale said, smirking. Take him out. As the guards approached, Ethan felt his control slipping. The years of rejection, the quiet humiliations, the constant reminder that brilliance meant nothing without belonging. It all crashed together. You can't just silence me, he said, his voice low and sharp. This is a public event. It's private property, Hale replied. Then quieter. People like you make this industry look foolish. There's a right way to do things. This isn't it. The words hit harder than any shove. As they escorted him away, Ethan saw one of the guards near his car's rear panel. Something looked off. The security seal on the access port was broken. Wait, he said. Someone tampered with my vehicle. Now he's making accusations, Hale said with a laugh. Maybe you should call the police. Ethan hesitated. A police report would only make things worse. Delays, records, suspicion. He clenched his jaw. Fine. I'm leaving. He got into his car and drove away, his heart pounding with fury and fear. At a red light, he opened his phone. Every meeting canceled. Every lead gone. His grandmother's message flashing at the top. He slammed his fist against the steering wheel. For a long moment, he sat there in silence, traffic blurring around him. Then he spoke softly, to no one but himself. No, not this time. He dialed a number. Dr. Winters, he said into the voicemail. It's Ethan Miles. I need your help. Hale Energetics tried to block me from the expo. They tampered with my prototype. I'm out of options. He ended the call and drove aimlessly, the city lights reflecting off the windshield like scattered memories. He parked outside a small cafe that had seen him through every failure. Inside, the air smelled of roasted coffee and second chances. Lucia, the owner, looked up. Rough day? Something like that, he said, sitting by the window. She brought his usual without asking. You'll figure it out. You always do. He smiled faintly. I hope you're right. As he sipped, his tablet buzzed. A system alert. Someone was trying to access his car's main controls remotely. The signal came from inside the expo network. His stomach dropped. He set down the cup, fingers trembling over the screen. Someone was inside his creation, trying to steal what he had built. Then a quiet voice spoke from across the table. You built an authentication system into your prototype, didn't you? Ethan looked up. A woman sat opposite him, silver-haired, calm, and sharp-eyed. She wore no jewelry except a worn university ring that matched his own. Dr. Winters? He breathed. She nodded. I got your message, and I've been watching. Her tone carried both warning and promise. Ethan, she said, leaning forward, if you're ready to fight back, I know exactly how. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt the faint spark of hope ignite again. He straightened. Tell me what to do. Ethan stared at Dr. Winters, trying to understand if this was real. He had left her a desperate message only hours earlier. Now she was sitting across from him, her calm presence cutting through the noise in his head. She pushed her tablet across the table. Your prototype made waves today, she said. I've already received 3 calls about a mysterious car in the expo parking lot. You've managed to make enemies and headlines at the same time. Ethan leaned forward. Pierce, no, Hale. He's trying to steal my data. He had his team break into my system. She nodded slowly. It doesn't surprise me. Richard Hale has built a career off taking credit for other people's work. You're not the first. He felt his anger return, simmering just below the surface. I can't let him take what I've built, but without the expo platform I have no way to prove my ownership. You do, she said. You just don't know it yet. She opened a file on her tablet, an agenda for the next day's schedule. Tomorrow is the Advanced Energy Panel. It's the most watched session of the entire convention. Hale is giving the keynote. She glanced up at him. But I have the authority to nominate a replacement panelist. I can get you on that stage. Ethan blinked. Me? They won't let me near that room. They won't have a choice. You'll be listed as a representative of the Advanced Energy Institute. She smiled faintly. I'm the director, remember? Ethan's mind raced. Even if I get there, he'll just discredit me. Then don't let him talk, she said simply. Show him. Show them all. He frowned. My authentication device, the one he took, it's gone. She raised an eyebrow. Gone or copied? He hesitated. Both, maybe. Then build another way in. You wrote the security protocol, didn't you? From scratch. Then there's always a back door. For the first time in days, he smiled. Yes, he said. There is. They worked through the night. In the quiet hum of the cafe's back corner, Ethan rebuilt his system from memory. His fingers moved fast, deliberate, as code lines filled the screen. Dr. Winters reviewed his schematics, occasionally muttering to herself, her sharp intellect slicing through every obstacle. By 3 a.m, exhaustion threatened to drag him under, but adrenaline held him steady. At 4, the new authentication protocol was complete. At 5, the presentation file was ready. By dawn, they sat in silence as the city stirred awake. Dr. Winters took a sip of cold coffee and said, Once you're on that stage, Hale will try to set the narrative. He'll frame you as reckless, unverified, unprofessional. You'll need to dismantle him on his own terms. Ethan nodded slowly. I've been underestimated my whole life. I'm used to speaking last and proving first. At 8, they arrived at the convention center's west entrance. The fog hung low, silver and heavy. A guard checked Ethan's ID against a printed list and waved them through without question. It was the first time in weeks someone had believed he belonged. Inside, the atmosphere was electric. Technicians tested microphones, screens flickered with sponsor logos, and assistants buzzed through hallways carrying coffee and cables. Dr. Winters guided him backstage, where a cluster of engineers and CEOs rehearsed their remarks. Ethan's name appeared on the schedule beside the giants of the industry. For a brief moment, he just stared at it, the weight of it hitting him. Miles Dynamics, he whispered. It didn't sound small anymore. Dr. Winters gave him a look that mixed pride with warning. You have 15 minutes. That's all it takes to change the world. Or lose it. He took a deep breath. Let's make it count. The coordinator approached, clipboard in hand. Dr. Winters, Mr. Miles, will need to verify your equipment list. Dr. Winters answered smoothly. We require vehicle access for a live demonstration. The coordinator frowned. Vehicles aren't typically allowed on stage. Then I suggest you check last year's archives, Dr. Winters said crisply. Hale Energetics displayed one. You're not suggesting different rules for us, are you? The coordinator blushed and nodded quickly. I'll confirm with logistics. As she hurried away, Ethan couldn't help but grin. You're terrifying. I prefer effective, she said. Then suddenly Richard Hale appeared, as if conjured by the tension itself. He stepped into the light with that same polished arrogance. Dr. Winters, he said with mock warmth. What a surprise. And Mr. Miles, back again, I see. I thought we'd settled our misunderstanding. Ethan met his eyes. You took something that wasn't yours? Hale's smile thinned. Big accusations from someone with no standing. I returned your trinket, didn't I? He reached into his pocket and produced the small silver device. Ethan's breath caught. He handed it over with exaggerated care. There you go. Maybe next time, keep your toys closer. Ethan took it. The casing had been opened, slightly scratched. They'd definitely copied the data. Thank you, Ethan said quietly, though every muscle in his body screamed for confrontation. Hale turned back to Dr. Winters. I can't imagine what compelled you to vouch for this man. Surely you know the risks of associating with unverified inventors. Richard, she said evenly. Sometimes the risk is not recognizing a revolution when it's standing in front of you. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He simply adjusted his tie and walked away. When he was gone, Ethan whispered, He thinks he's already won. Dr. Winters looked at him. Then let him believe it. The fall will hurt more. Backstage lights flickered as final checks began. Ethan's phone buzzed, a message from his grandmother's nurse. The words hit him like ice. Treatment denied again. Need payment by Friday or services end. He felt the world tilt slightly. His throat tightened. Dr. Winters noticed. Bad news? They're cutting her off, he said, showing her the message. And I just got a foreclosure notice. He's been digging into my finances, trying to crush me before I even speak. She placed a steady hand on his shoulder. Then today, you give him a reason to regret ever learning your name. He nodded, jaw set. The house lights dimmed. The audience murmured. The stage crew whispered through headsets. Richard Hale's voice came over the speakers as the moderator introduced him for the keynote address. Ethan listened from the shadows, every word etching deeper resolve into his bones. Hale spoke about responsible innovation, about the dangers of unverified creators, about how progress belonged in the hands of established institutions. The crowd nodded, applauded, admired. When the moderator announced, and now representing Miles Dynamics, Ethan Miles. Hale's applause was the loudest of all. Ethan stepped onto the stage. The spotlights hit his face like sunlight through glass, blinding, sharp, exposing. He looked out at hundreds of faces, investors, journalists, engineers, doubters. He smiled, and then he began to speak. "Good morning," he said. His voice carried, calm and sure. "I'm Ethan Miles. I'm here because I believe progress shouldn't depend on pedigree. It should depend on proof." The room quieted instantly. He gestured toward his vehicle, now shining under the stage lights. "This isn't just a car. It's what happens when belief outlasts rejection." As he spoke, a technician wheeled the prototype forward. The soft hum of its energy core filled the hall like the beginning of a storm. "In the last decade," he continued, "we've been told that a 15% improvement is a miracle. I'm here to show you a 300% leap, and I can prove it." The audience leaned in. Even Hale's confident smile faltered. Ethan held up the small, silver device. "This contains every patent, every test, every line of code I've written. But more importantly, it contains a truth no one can steal. The signature of creation." He connected it to the main display. The lights dimmed. A holographic model of his system filled the stage, rotating gently in the air, data glowing around it. The silence was total. And then he said, "Let's test something." Hale shifted in his seat. Ethan looked at him. "Mr. Hale, your company claims expertise in polymer energy storage. Perhaps you'd like to demonstrate your understanding." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Hale's smile froze. "Excuse me?" Ethan tapped a key. "3 questions, that's all. Let's see who really understands this technology." The hologram flashed. The first question appeared. The stage was no longer his opponent's platform. It was his courtroom, and Ethan Miles was ready to deliver judgment. The first question glowed in the air above the stage. "In a polymer conductivity matrix, how does molecular alignment affect electron flow under thermal stress?" The audience murmured softly. It was a question that every expert in advanced energy systems should have understood. Ethan waited. "Mr. Hale?" Hale hesitated. The microphone picked up the faint sound of his breathing. "Well," he began, voice tight, "alignment enhances conductivity through directional reinforcement naturally." A red light flashed beside the question. "Incorrect," Ethan said calmly. "Thermal stress causes asymmetry in molecular bonds, reducing flow unless corrected through symmetry modulation." The audience leaned forward, caught between confusion and fascination. Hale's jaw tightened. Ethan continued. "Second question. When scaling from prototype to industrial application, which factor becomes the most significant limiting variable?" Hale's voice was sharper now. "Heat dissipation, obviously." Another red light blinked. Ethan didn't even look away. "Incorrect again. It's polymer fatigue. Without microstabilization, your storage efficiency collapses by 30%. The room shifted. People were whispering. Journalists started typing. Someone in the front row whispered, "He's dismantling him live." Ethan turned to the hologram again. "Final question. What catalyst enables self-healing in a conductivity lattice when microfractures appear?" Hale's face flushed. Sweat rolled down his temple. "These are ridiculous. Theoretical nonsense." "No," Ethan said quietly. "They're the foundation of my invention." He tapped a command. A small window opened on the main screen showing digital logs, each timestamped verified. "Yesterday, during my forced removal from this convention, someone tried to access my prototype's data port. These are the network credentials used." A ripple of gasps moved through the crowd. The screen displayed one name, Hale Energetics Network. Admin access attempt. Hale shot to his feet. "That's fabricated." "This is slander." "Is it?" Ethan replied. "Because every attempt left a signature, and my system recorded them all." He brought up a new holographic layer showing the traces of unauthorized access, timestamps, IPs, encrypted fingerprints. The evidence unfolded like an open secret. Dr. Winters watched from the front row, her eyes shining with fierce pride. Ethan stepped closer to the edge of the stage. His voice stayed steady, but each word carried years of restraint finally breaking. "This device," he said, holding up the small silver core, "was copied, tampered with, and returned to me this morning. But Mr. Hale made one mistake. He held it high so every camera could see. It responds only to the original creator's biometrics. He connected it again, pressing his thumb to the sensor. The display flickered, then erupted into cascading data streams. Graphs, images, schematics, every stage of creation logged, signed, and authenticated by his neural key. Every line of code, every test result, every parameter, mine. The evidence filled the screens, wrapping the hall in blue light. The hologram rotated, showing not just invention but proof. "Now," Ethan said, "let me show you what it does." He turned to the car. The soft hum deepened as the system came alive. Energy metrics pulsed across the air display, capacity, voltage, output, all climbing higher than the industry's best numbers. The audience held its breath. "Charging time," he said, pressing a button. Under 3 minutes. The readout climbed to full capacity in 180 seconds. Applause broke out before the numbers even settled. Ethan let the sound wash over him. "This isn't a claim. This is a demonstration. This technology changes everything: transportation, infrastructure, accessibility. It makes clean power fast, cheap, and universal." He turned back toward Hale, who sat rigid, color draining from his face. Mr. Hale said innovation belongs to institutions. I say it belongs to anyone willing to lose sleep, fail 73 times, and still believe enough to try again. A hush filled the room. Cameras flashed. Every journalist leaned forward. "I built this in a rented warehouse scheduled for foreclosure. I built it while the world told me I didn't belong here. I built it because my grandmother's life depended on it. And I'm standing here because no one has the right to tell me where genius should come from." For a heartbeat, silence. Then someone started clapping. Another joined. The sound swelled until it filled the hall. People rose to their feet. Applause turned into cheers. Reporters were already calling it historic. Richard Hale sat motionless, staring at the stage that had become his downfall. When the moderator finally quieted the crowd, the first question came from the front row. "Mr. Miles," said a woman with a confident voice, "I'm Amara Williams from Horizon Ventures. We'd like to discuss immediate funding opportunities." Before Ethan could answer, another investor stood. "Same here," then another, and another. The tide had turned completely. Ethan blinked against the lights, the roar of applause crashing through the tension that had lived in his body for years. Dr. Winters approached the stage, whispering into his ear. "You did it." He nodded once, barely able to breathe. "No," he said softly. "We did." As the audience rose again, phones flashing, journalists shouting questions, Hale stood and stumbled toward the exit. But 2 security officers stepped forward, blocking his way. One of them said quietly, "We'll need to verify your credentials, sir." The same words he'd used on Ethan. The irony didn't go unnoticed. Hale turned, glared at Ethan one last time, then pushed through the crowd and disappeared backstage. Ethan stood still as the applause continued. Somewhere inside the noise, a message buzzed on his phone. He opened it. Treatment approved. Full coverage confirmed. His grandmother's nurse had sent it minutes earlier. He closed his eyes. The fight was over. But he knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. 6 months later, the old warehouse that once echoed with the hum of Ethan's late-night experiments had been reborn. What used to smell of solder and exhaustion now carried the clean scent of new paint, coffee, and possibility. The sign outside read Miles Dynamics Headquarters. Inside, light streamed through high windows, spilling across rows of glass-walled labs and open workstations. Dozens of engineers moved with purpose, each one working on projects powered by Ethan's breakthrough technology. Some were veterans of major firms, but many were young innovators from communities that had never been invited into this kind of space before. Ethan made sure of that. Every desk had a small engraving on its edge, a phrase his grandmother once told him. "Dignity isn't given. It's what no one can take away." Ethan walked through the floor with his sleeves rolled up, grease smudged on his forearm. Success hadn't changed that part of him. He paused by a group testing a compact power module. "Try adjusting the alignment coils," he suggested, and the young engineer nodded eagerly, making the change. The output spiked. Cheers rose. Beyond the workspace, a conference team waited for him, delegates from Japan who were there to discuss large-scale grid applications of his technology. "They're ready for you, Mr. Miles," his assistant said. He smiled faintly. "Tell them I'll be there in 2 minutes." Before leaving, he crossed the lab to a framed photograph hanging beside the company mission statement. His grandparents stood in front of their old auto shop in Chicago, the same photo that once hung above his cluttered workbench. Beneath it, the mission read, "Innovation belongs to those who solve real problems for real people." He touched the frame lightly. "We made it," he whispered. The phone on his desk buzzed, a video call from his grandmother. Her smile filled the screen, bright and mischievous as ever. "You look tired, boy," he laughed. "Building a company's harder than building an engine." "Don't I know it," she said. "But I saw the news. They say your car runs cleaner than anything on the road. You always were stubborn. I learned from the best." "Remember," she said, her tone softening, "what matters isn't just what you build. It's who gets to stand beside you when you build it." He nodded. "That's why I started the mentorship program. First round of scholarships goes out next month." Her eyes glistened. "You're turning the bridges we needed into roads for others." After the call ended, Ethan stood by the window for a long moment. Outside, the city pulsed with movement. Electric buses powered by his system, homes already testing his storage units, and factories converting to clean energy because of what he created in that forgotten warehouse. He thought of Richard Hale, the man who once ruled this world, had vanished from the headlines after being forced to resign. His company still existed, but it was smaller now. Humbled. Its name whispered more in caution than in admiration. The world had moved on. Ethan turned back toward the entrance as the delegation from Japan arrived. But before he joined them, something caught his eye, a young woman standing near the reception desk. She was clutching a small prototype in both hands, whispering to herself as if rehearsing. Her nerves were visible, her determination sharper than her fear. He recognized that look. He'd worn it once outside an expo that almost ended his dream. He walked over. "You're here for a meeting?" She startled slightly. "Yes, sir, I'm Maya. I have a design for a medical monitor that works without constant internet. For remote villages. I'm supposed to present it today." "Supposed to?" he asked, smiling. She hesitated. "I wasn't sure they'd actually listen." Ethan extended his hand. "I'm Ethan Miles, come with me. Tell me about it while we walk." As they headed toward the conference room, she began explaining her concept. Clear, passionate, full of the same restless belief that once kept him awake through endless nights. He listened closely, not out of courtesy, but out of recognition. When they reached the door, he paused. "Whatever happens in there, remember this," he said. "You don't need permission to change the world. Just proof." She nodded, a spark of courage lighting her face. Ethan opened the door, and together they stepped into the room where futures were decided. Outside, the city skyline gleamed beneath the rising sun. The world that once shut its doors on Ethan Miles now ran on the energy he'd created, an energy that no one could steal, silence, or stop. And somewhere in that endless hum of progress, the quiet truth of his journey remained. Every wall built to keep someone out could one day become the foundation for something greater. The revolution had never been about revenge. It was about rewriting the rules so that no one else would have to knock on a door that refused to open. Ethan smiled as the young inventor began her pitch. The world was finally listening, and it would never be the same again. The room fell into a hush as Maya began to speak. Her voice trembled at first, but as she described her invention, confidence started to fill each word. Ethan watched the executives across the table, stoic at first, skeptical as always. He recognized that silence. It was the same silence that once greeted him at every pitch meeting, the kind that measured worth before listening. But then something shifted. Her words began to flow like current through copper. She explained how her system could save lives in places without hospitals or stable power grids, how it could monitor vital signs, diagnose early symptoms, and send data to local clinics without relying on expensive infrastructure. One of the Japanese delegates leaned forward. "You've already tested this?" Maya nodded. "In 2 villages outside Nairobi. The devices have been running for 4 months on a single charge." The man exchanged a look with his colleagues. Interest had replaced doubt. Ethan could feel the electricity in the air. He'd seen this moment before, the second when disbelief turned into wonder. He leaned back slightly, letting her take full command of the room. When she finished, the lead delegate smiled. "Miss Maya, I believe what you've created is remarkable. We would like to discuss a partnership. Her mouth fell open. She glanced at Ethan as if asking if this was real. He just nodded once. You earned it, he said quietly. As the meeting ended, applause filled the room. She shook hands with each investor, tears threatening to spill. When they left, she turned to Ethan. You just changed my life. He shook his head. You changed it yourself. I just made sure they were listening. She smiled, clutching her prototype like it was something sacred. I hope one day I can do what you did for me for someone else. You will, he said. That's how this keeps going. When she left the room, Ethan stood by the window looking out over the bay. The sky was layered with gold and violet, the sun dipping low, its reflection breaking across the glass towers that once symbolized exclusion. Now those towers gleamed with possibility. Behind him, Dr. Winters entered. You've created something far bigger than a company, she said. You've built a movement, he turned. I couldn't have done it without you, she chuckled softly. Oh, I just opened a door. You tore down a wall. They stood together for a moment, watching the workers below preparing another shipment of his technology. Rows of sleek units bound for hospitals, schools, and homes in places that had waited too long for reliable power. Do you ever think about Hale? She asked suddenly. Sometimes, he admitted. Not with anger. Just as a reminder. Of what? That arrogance can build empires, but truth builds legacies. She nodded slowly. He called me last month. Wanted to consult. I told him I was busy. Ethan smiled faintly. Good. Let him stay busy watching the world move on without him. Dr. Winters glanced at the clock. You have a live broadcast in an hour. The Global Consortium wants you to address the next phase of deployment. He sighed, picking up his notes. When this started, all I wanted was a chance to prove myself. Now it feels like the chance is proving humanity. She gave him a look half stern, half proud. Go inspire them. The world listens when you speak now. As she left, Ethan's phone buzzed. A video message. He opened it and saw his grandmother sitting in her garden, a blanket over her knees, a sun hat perched slightly crooked. Ethan, she said, her voice warm. They showed me the broadcast from Tokyo. You stood there talking about light, about hope, about power that doesn't hurt the earth. And all I could think was how your grandfather would have smiled to see it. She paused, her eyes bright. You did it, baby. You turned our name into something that means progress again. I don't know how many days I've got left, but I want you to remember something. Never stop letting people see what's possible when they stop asking for permission to matter. The message ended. Ethan stood frozen, phone still in his hand. He felt the sting behind his eyes, the rush in his chest. He whispered to the empty room, I won't stop, Grandma. I promise. That evening the world tuned in. The broadcast connected major cities, small towns, remote villages, even ships at sea. Ethan stood before the camera, the glow of his car behind him, the skyline shimmering beyond. He spoke not like a CEO, but like someone speaking to family. There was a time when I believed innovation belonged to those with access, with wealth, with doors already open. But I learned something. Innovation doesn't live in institutions. It lives in imagination. It lives wherever someone refuses to give up. He looked straight into the camera. We can light every home on this planet. We can power every dream. We can stop asking who deserves the future and start building it together. The feed went live to millions. Across the world, people cheered. Some cried. Others simply looked at the screen and thought, maybe it's possible. When the lights dimmed and the crew began packing up, Ethan stepped outside into the cool night air. The city hummed softly around him. For once, he didn't feel like an outsider looking in. He was part of the hum now. He took a slow breath, watching the horizon where the sky met the ocean. Somewhere beyond that line, new innovators were waking up, ready to take the next step, and he knew that was exactly how it should be. He didn't need statues or headlines or trophies. He had something better. Legacy. He smiled, hands in his pockets, the city lights reflecting in his eyes like distant stars. For the first time in his life, Ethan Miles felt what real peace was made of. Not applause, not revenge, but the quiet certainty that the future was finally open to everyone. The story of Ethan Miles didn't end with victory. It continued in every hand that dared to build, in every dream that refused to die, and in every moment when someone stood against disbelief and said, I belong here too.